you can see, we are talking about the value of life, the value of children. So I have a few stats to get us started, and then we'll have a presentation so as of April 2021, in Johnson County, there are 579 children in the foster care system. So 500, almost 600 in Johnson County, 6,780 in the state of Kansas. There are over 35,000 reports of child abuse and neglect in the state each year, and then but then out of those kids that are in the foster care system, out of the almost 600, almost half will be united with their family at some point. Johnson County has an average of 270 adoptions each year. And they said that there's a need for 200 plus beds for children in our state. There's 400 Kansas children waiting to be adopted by a loving family. So a lot of these stats, this comes from KCV. They do a presentation. So we're going to move to worldwide. There are more than 150 million orphans worldwide. It says each day just under 6,000 children become orphaned in the world. So worldwide orphanages and foster programs in the US, 4 out of 5 children worldwide who become orphans still actually have one living parent. And about 55% of those in the United States still have a living parent. So I think something, as we started researching some of these statistics, that it seems really that supporting families is one of the best ways to prevent children being without homes or being without parents. And oftentimes just families need support on various levels. So in the US, there are around 120,000 children in need of adoption each year, and only about half of those are adopted, so about 60,000 in the US. So we have this idea that the demand for infant adoption is highest, but there are actually fewer mothers giving up their infants, and there's a lot more of the children that are needing to be adopted that's come when they are older. We have some stats on abortion. So abortions in Kansas and nationally have actually been decreasing over the last 20 years. So in 2020, there were about almost 7,000 abortions reported in Kansas. So this really struck me that the number of abortions in 2020 in the state is just about equal to the number of kids in foster care. So I think that we can probably all agree that this is an important topic. It's something we all say, man, we need to help support this, that this is something the church should be part of. But it's also something that's really hard. It's really time-consuming, it's energy-consuming, but we have families who have done it and who are doing it. And so that's part of our presentation is we're going to hear from Amber Rebar, Amber and Andy are relatively new to our church, but they have some experience with foster care and adoption. So we get to hear a little bit of their story, and then a little bit from her about what are ways that a church and what are ways that we as individuals can help support other families on this journey. So come on up, Amber. I'll grab you.
Good morning. I know that we haven't met a lot of you yet, but I'm Amber, and my husband and I started doing foster care, what year is it, 2021? About 7 years ago. I don't know, you kind of lose track of days. But about 7 years ago, we didn't think that we could have children, and we did a lot of things on our own, thinking that we could fix that. And God really just softened our hearts to foster care. It wasn't something initially that we wanted to do because we knew it was going to be really hard. And we are really good friends with the vice president at KVC, which is where Tiffany got her stats. And she came to, actually not me because she knew, she came to my husband and said, hey, I have a SIB set of 3 and I want him to move in with you. And I was like, are you out of your mind? We have no children, we have no experience with children, but sure, let's let 3 littles move into our home. So we ended up getting 2 of them. A bio aunt wanted the little girl, so we actually never got her. And we ended up adopting those 2, the older 2 of them. And then we've had other kids in our home, in and out. And then Jackson moved in with us, and we ended up adopting him just a few years ago. So we have 3 adopted, and then God in his Divine Comedy blessed us with 2 more of our own biological children. So we have a house of 5 of our, it's just absolute chaos. But foster care is hard. They don't tell you a lot when you take these kids into your home. They just literally dropped them off on our doorstep with a bag full of stuff, and they were like, here, be their parents. They didn't tell us about behaviors. They didn't tell us any of that. So when you get these kids in your home, a lot of times there's significant trauma. Sometimes they'll tell you about it. Sometimes they don't know all of it. So, when you have your 5-year-old swinging on you, throwing things, breaking things, beating holes in your walls and your doors, you're like, what do we do? But we knew that chances were that no one else would take them. And so, especially being a SIBSET, we had no kids. We had a 4-bedroom house. We had plenty of room. So we kept them, and it's a hard journey. It really is. But we knew that we could provide them a home where they would grow up knowing Jesus, and that was probably not going to be the case if they moved in with another home. So 3 kids. I think that the most important thing is to just be a friend. I think that when you know other families who are fostering, our church previously closed, which is how we became attending here. When my husband used to work every other weekend, so we would have friends at our church that would just see me struggling. I would be at church by myself with these kids, and I would be literally carrying my 5 or 6-year-old out of the building because he would refuse to come, and they'd say, you know what, let me just take him for a few hours. And to them, that was nothing. They would just go home and play with their kids, and they would bring them home to me. But for me, I could go and just be alone for a little bit and kind of regroup. And so if you know people who are fostering that you can help, or I would have friends say, I'm just going to bring you dinner. And that was just one less thing that as a family we had to worry about. So if you can just be a friend to people who are fostering, that it's even in small ways, it's so big and impactful in their lives. And then also for the kids, I think just being a friend, that's what I was telling Tiffany on the phone the other day. That's one of the hardest things about being a foster parent. You have these visions of what your life is going to be like with your children, and then you're going to be having sleepovers and play dates and all of these things. And the truth of that is, because of behaviors, because of trauma, because of developmental delays and all of the things that we struggle with in our home, they don't have a lot of friends. They don't build those strong relationships because in a lot of ways they can't, or they just have so many walls up, or just behaviors in general. I know for our oldest, it makes it hard for people to want to be friends with them when they're seeing them act out in school and things. And so as a parent, it's really heartbreaking to see your kids come home from school crying, saying, no one will play with me, or I don't have any friends. So I think if we can teach our children that not everybody gets to grow up in a home with 2 parents, and not everybody gets to grow up with the privilege that a lot of kids in Western Shawnee do, and teaching them to be kind and accepting. I think that that's just a really valuable lesson for kids as well. Okay, and then the last thing, so the pastors at our old church, Justin and Sarah Oberndorfer, came from Oklahoma and were already involved in foster care and then became licensed here in Kansas. And they started an organization called Joy Meadows. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it, but it's in Basur. And so it's a foster care community, and they bought, 30 or 40 acres, I think, in Basur, with one house on it. But their goal is to build several family homes. So there'll be individual family homes that foster families can live in for free. There'll be, there's guidelines, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but for how many kids you have to be fostering or adopting or adoptive in your home in order to live there. But it just takes that financial burden, because a lot of times, like, I used to work full-time, but as we continued, having children move into our home, it just became more and more challenging for me to focus at my job when I was getting, 3 or 4 phone calls a day from the school. And so that's just one less financial burden for foster families. And then they also have all kinds of therapists, OT, just regular therapy, equine therapy, all kinds of different things that they do. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. We actually don't go there just because we already have really great therapists in place, but we know several of our friends that they just go there for Friday is their therapy day, and their kids just kind of scatter, and they go to see their regular therapists and their OT therapists, and then they go and visit the horses and the animals, and it's just kind of a day where you're not running all over the city to get your kids to therapy and everywhere that they need to be. So if that's something that anybody is interested in, they have all kinds of opportunities as well. So I think that's everything.
Amber, and if you want the name of Joy Meadows and then a couple other opportunities to serve, I know lots of folks from Harvest Ridge are involved in Royal Family Kids Camp and other things. We have a handout on the Mercy Ministry table, or Mercy and May Missions May table in the narthex. Feel free to take that handout with you. Let's pray together.